episode 140. Ron looked down at the page gloomily, but then brightened. "You giving me an evening off every week?"
"That's for Quidditch practice,"
said Hermione. The smile faded from Ron's face. "What's the point?" he said. "We've got about as much chance of winning the Quidditch Cup this year as Dad's got of becoming Minister of Magic." Hermione said nothing. She was looking at Harry, who was staring blankly at the opposite wall of the common room, while Crookshanks pawed at his hand, trying to get his ear scratched.
"What's wrong, Harry?"
"What?" he said quickly. "Nothing." He seized his copy of Defensive Magical Theory and pretended to be looking something up in the index. Crookshanks gave him up as a bad job and slunk away under Hermione's chair.
"I saw Jo earlier," said Hermione tentatively, "and she looked really miserable too. Have you two had a row again?"
"What? Oh, yeah, we have," said Harry, seizing gratefully on the excuse.
"What about?"
"That sneak friend of hers, Marietta," said Harry. "Yeah, well, I don't blame you," said Ron angrily, setting down his study schedule. "If it hadn't been for her—" Ron went into a rant about Marietta Edgecombe, which Harry found helpful. All he had to do was look angry, nod, and say, "Yeah, that's right," whenever Ron drew breath, leaving his mind free to dwell ever more miserably on what he had seen in the Pensieve. He felt as though the memory of it was eating him from the inside. He'd been so sure that his parents had been wonderful people that he had never had the slightest difficulty in disbelieving Snape's aspersions on his father's character. Hadn't people like Hagrid and Sirius told Harry how wonderful his father had been? "Yeah, well, look what Sirius was like himself," said a nagging voice inside Harry's head. "He was just as bad, wasn't he?" Yes, he had once overheard Professor McGonagall saying that his father and Sirius had been troublemakers at school, but she had described them as forerunners of the Weasley twins, and Harry could not imagine Fred and George dangling someone upside down for the fun of it, not unless they really loathed them. Perhaps Malfoy, or somebody who really deserved it. Harry tried to make a case for Snape having deserved what he had suffered at James's hands, but hadn't Lily asked, "What's he done to you?" And hadn't James replied, "It's more the fact that he exists, if you know what I mean?" Hadn't James started it all simply because Sirius said he was bored? Harry remembered Lupin saying back in Grimmauld Place that Dumbledore had made him prefect in hope that he would be able to exercise some control over James and Sirius. But in the Pensieve, he had sat there and let it all happen. Harry reminded himself that Lily had intervened. His mother had been decent. Yet the memory of the look on her face as she had shouted at James disturbed him quite as much as anything else. She had clearly loathed James, and Harry simply could not understand how they could have ended up married. Once or twice he even wondered whether James had forced her into it. For nearly 5 years, the thought of his father had been a source of comfort, of inspiration. Whenever someone had told him he was like James, he had glowed with pride inside. And now he felt cold and miserable at the thought of him. The weather grew breezier, brighter, and warmer as the holidays passed, but Harry was stuck with the rest of the 5th and 7th years, who were all trapped inside, traipsing back and forth to the library. Harry pretended that his bad mood had no other cause but the approaching exams, and as his fellow Gryffindors were sick of studying themselves, his excuse went unchallenged. "Harry, I'm talking to you. Can you hear me?" "Huh?" He looked around. Ginny Weasley, looking very windswept, had joined him at the library table where he had been sitting alone. It was late on Sunday evening. Hermione had gone back to Gryffindor Tower to review ancient runes. Ron had Quidditch practice. "Oh, hi," said Harry, pulling his books back toward him. "How come you're not at practice?" "It's over," said Ginny. "Ron had to take Jack Sloper up to the hospital wing." "Why?" "Well, we're not sure, but we think he knocked himself out with his own bat." She sighed heavily. "Anyway, a package just arrived. It's only just got through Umbridge's new screening process." She hoisted a box wrapped in brown paper onto the table. It had clearly been unwrapped and carelessly rewrapped, and there was a scribbled note across it in red ink reading,
"Inspected and passed by the Hogwarts High Inquisitor."
"It's Easter eggs from Mum," said Ginny. "There's one for you. There you go." She handed him a handsome chocolate egg decorated with small iced snitches and, according to the packaging, containing a bag of fizzing Whizbees. Harry looked at it for a moment, then, to his horror, felt a hard lump rise in his throat. "Are you okay, Harry?" asked Ginny quietly. "Yeah, I'm fine," said Harry gruffly. The lump in his throat was painful. He did not understand why an Easter egg should have made him feel like this. "You seem really down lately," Ginny persisted. "You know, I'm sure if you just talk to Cho—" "It's not Cho I want to talk to," said Harry brusquely. "Who is it then?" asked Ginny. He glanced around to make quite sure that nobody was listening. Madame Ponce was several shelves away, stamping out a pile of books for a frantic-looking Hannah Abbott. "I wish I could talk to Sirius," he muttered, "but I know I can't." More to give himself something to do than because he really wanted any, Harry unwrapped his Easter egg, broke off a large bit, and put it into his mouth. "Well," said Ginny slowly, helping herself to a bit of egg too, "if you really want to talk to Sirius, I expect we could think of a way to do it." "Come on," said Harry hopelessly, "with Umbridge policing the fires and reading all our mail?" "The thing about growing up with Fred and George," said Ginny thoughtfully, "is that you sort of start thinking anything's possible if you've got enough nerve." Harry looked at her. Perhaps it was the effect of the chocolate. Lupin had always advised eating some after encounters with Dementors, or simply because he had finally spoken aloud the wish that had been burning inside him for a week, but he felt a bit more hopeful. "What do you think you are doing?" "Oh, damn," whispered Ginny, jumping to her feet. "I forgot." Madame Ponce was swooping down upon them, her shriveled face contorted with rage. "Chocolate in the library!" she screamed. "Out! Out! Out!" And whipping out her wand, she caused Harry's books, bag, and ink bottle to chase him and Ginny from the library, whacking them repeatedly over the head as they ran. As though to underline the importance of their upcoming examinations, a batch of pamphlets, leaflets, and notices concerning various wizarding careers appeared on the tables in Gryffindor Tower shortly before the end of the holidays, along with yet another notice on the board, which read, "Career Advice. All fifth years will be required to attend a short meeting with their head of house during the first week of the summer term, in which they will be given the opportunity to discuss their future careers. Times of individual appointments are listed below." Harry looked down the list and found that he was expected in Professor McGonagall's office at 2:30 on Monday, which would mean missing most of divination. He and the other fifth years spent a considerable part of the final weekend of Easter break reading all the career information that had been left there for their perusal. "Well, I don't fancy healing," said Ron on the last evening of the holidays. He was immersed in a leaflet that carried the crossed bone and wand emblem of St. Mungo's on its front. "It says here you need at least an E at note level in potions, herbology, transfiguration, charms, and defense against the dark arts. I mean, blimey, don't want much, do they?"
"Well, it's a very responsible job, isn't it?"
said Hermione absently.